Welcome to the Wizarding Wireless Network podcast with me, AJ.
And me, Will.
Together, we will be once again bringing you our no-holds-barred thoughts, opinions, and detailed analysis on all things Wizarding World. So please, with that in mind, grab yourself a glass of fire whiskey and settle into this week's episode of the WWN.
Welcome to the Wizarding Wireless Network with your hosts AJ and Will, streaming on to you on all of your favourite podcast providers and on YouTube. On today's Folio Universitas episode, we will be talking about none other than the famous three, the Golden Trio, Ron, Harry and Hermione.
Lovely. Ron would be very happy that you said his name first.
Well, exactly. I mean, we've got to do some charitable work.
I know, care in the community. God forgive me. So, the Golden Trio, we all know and we all love them. So, where do we stand on them? What's your thoughts on them as a collective? Do you think they work well together? Do you think they are the perfect friendship group?
Well, I think they're definitely like that kind of perfect kind of couple where they all complement each other and they all kind of come together quite nicely. Yeah, I think actually they do a lot of kind of balancing each other out where they kind of all fill in each other's gaps. And I think that's what's quite nice about the Golden Trio is they each have their own strong point and they utilise that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love the three of them together as a group. I think their whole dynamic is fabulous. Every single one of them has got their own skills and attributes that they bring to the relationship. They complement each other so well. And I really just cannot imagine another group of three characters within this series who has a relationship as strong as them.
Yeah, I mean, even if we look at people like, the Bronze Trio? Where it's Neville, Ginny and Luna. It's just kind of like, there's not really kind of like that kind of strong balancing element. They're all kind of like, I don't want to say bumbling along, but you know what I mean. It's not as cohesive as the Golden Trio. It is very much a case of Hermione has her strengths in terms of being cleverness, exactly. And that kind of smart. Whereas Ron is very practical. He doesn't have as much stress over kind of breaking rules. He just kind of does what he needs to get done.
Yeah, and I think as well, growing up from a background of the Weasley family, he is the only one of these three characters who has never experienced the Muggle world. He's the one who's been brought up in full-scale Wizarding world. And especially having brothers like Fred and George, I suppose his attitude to, breaking the rules is very laissez-faire because he's grown up with it.
Yeah, I think actually that really shines through on a lot of the Weasleys because that even comes through on Ginny's character. And it's that whole thing of like using almost like practical jokes as a weapon.
Yeah.
And that really shines through with Ron, actually.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. But as I say, I absolutely love the three of them in the way that they do work together. But I think in terms of casting, I think they really did hit the nail on the head. Because I think the three of them, the three actors, Daniel, Rupert and Emma, they work so well together. And I know that whenever we go back and watch the 20th anniversary Return to Hogwarts special, there was some disparity about whether or not Emma was going to stay after Order of the Phoenix. For me, I don't know how the series would have continued without her, because I think, albeit it's Harry Potter and it's very much Daniel Radcliffe and Rupert Grint and Emma Watson and
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know how it would have worked if they then recast someone else in Hermione Granger's role. It would have just felt completely weird. So I am so glad that she stayed to carry on the rest of the series, because I think if she had left, it would have died with her.
Yeah, I think there would have been a lot of fans who maybe wouldn't have put so much kind of energy into the series had she left, because she is like one of the main three characters. They're the people you're following and growing up with. And I think even there was some disparity about when Richard Harris had passed away and Dumbledore's character changed from Richard Harris to Michael Gambon. And even then people were kind of had contentions about it when he first came in, let alone one of the main characters who had then been in for 5 of the 8 films.
I remember going to see Prisoner of Azkaban in the cinema, and when Michael Gambon appeared on that podium saying welcome, welcome to another year at Hogwarts, I was like, where's Dumbledore? I remember thinking, like, who is this man? In the back of my mind, I knew that Richard Harris had died, but I was still expecting him to show up for the rest of the movies. I told you I'm a bit thick. So even part of me was still thinking, like, but yeah, he can just come back like a ghost, like nearly Headless Nick.
Yeah, like he had died in the films, not died IRL.
Exactly. It was a very bizarre time for me. But even then, coming back to the whole Michael Gambon thing, as I've said many times before, I watched the movies, then read the books. And for me, it's very difficult to not imagine Rupert, Dan and Emma as the Golden Trio. So whenever I see Ron Weasley, I see Rupert Grint. And whenever I see Emma Watson, I see Hermione Granger. So I think if, going very far in as Order of the Phoenix, and then to have Emma Watson leave and replace with someone else, because realistically they would have had to have carried on. They would have had to have replaced her with someone. Who that person would have been is another thing. Now, in our minds, and I certainly know in mine, and I can't speak for you, but in my mind, no one can replace these characters. No one can replace this cast. You can certainly give it a good go, but for me, you will never ever be Harry Potter, Ron Weasley or Hermione Granger. With that being said, if you took the 3 of those actors out of the equation, who would you have playing them?
See, well, this is what I was going to say, is the fact, like, they got it so right with Dan, Rupert and Emma. Like, overall, I generally think they got the casting so right in the first place. It's really going to be hard to try and top beating, like, a casting like that.
And for me, that is genuinely one of my main worries when it comes to the HBO series. And now, by no means am I saying that it's going to be a failure or a flop, and I genuinely, hand on heart, have every hope that this is a success. I do think, though, whoever does fill, especially the Golden Trio shoes, will have huge boots to fill.
Yeah. And I think this is the thing of, like we've talked before, is like where the contention comes from. I think this is where our worry mainly comes from about the HBO series, is what is their kind of criteria for casting? Like with the original casting, it was purely British actors, whereas now it's a case of like, well, we don't know whether that's going to be something that they're going to follow through on.
Where do you stand on that? Do you think they have to be British, or do you think it can be open to anyone?
I would personally like to see it stay British actors. I think there's so much you get out of having a British actor in film, where it's very much like if they've gone through classically trained acting schools, you get so much out of that. So I think, I mean, I've got a fair few in mind in terms of, I did a kind of like look up as to kind of like who might be in the runnings.
Oh, I've not heard any of that. Who is?
So we've got Joshua Pickering.
Right.
As a potential. Doesn't say who, but potentially looking at him, I would probably see him more as a Malfoy character.
Okay.
He was in Peter Pan and Wendy recently, so he is as that kind of like age group, and he does look younger than he is, so he could probably get away with that kind of like starting off at the first film and looks the part.
Okay, so he's established in the industry.
Yeah. I mean, he's done 3 kind of well-known films. Like he's done, so his IMDb page is things like A Discovery of Witches back in 2018, Safe Space 2022, and then Peter Pan and Wendy 2023. So he's got quite a established background.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I think nowadays, the way that things go, I can see. I do like the whole quintessentially Britishness about the original cast, because realistically, even now, we still have some of the most fabulous acting talent that the world has ever seen. But then again, just as equally, so is the rest of the world, because there are some fabulous actors out there.
Oh, absolutely.
Not necessarily British. My concern is that they get it really wrong.
Yeah.
I think this is not going to be a shotgun decision. They really need to sit down and work through who is going to be the best pick for this TV show, because it's not just a case of we need to get a stellar cast in to draw in people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not reliant on like, well, we're going to have big names, therefore people are going to watch it. It's going to be, you've got to get the right casting, full stop, on everyone, not just big names in big titles.
Exactly. It's like, but I've seen instances where that is completely fallen flat. Now, controversially, may or may not be, but my opinion on the Kenneth Branagh Murder in the Orient Express, I cannot watch that in any way, shape or form. I went to the cinema and seen it once, and I've read the book. My heart will always be David Suchet as Poirot, but Kenneth Branagh took Poirot and turned him completely on his head. He turned him into like a swashbuckling hero, but that was never Poirot. In that same movie, though, you had an absolutely stellar cast. I believe Olivia Colman was in it. I think Judi Dench was in it. Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah.
Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
When you see that, you think, right, people have signed on for this. Big names have signed on for it. But then again, when I went and seen it, I was like, oh. I mean, the acting was good, but I think they got it wrong with the characterization.
Interesting. Okay.
So this is where I really don't want the series to fall flat.
Yeah, I think one of my main concerns realistically is if they cast people, are they going to be in like a 10-year contract of you are signing up to be in everything, or are they going to be recording all of this in such a quick succession that the cast don't have time to grow up?
That's the thing. It's that you want it to be done properly, and you don't want it to be churned out just for making a quick buck.
Exactly. Because again, that's what we then saw happen with the remake of Star Wars, and then actually it hasn't really gained that much more of a following from the newer material.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what about you? Did you have anyone in particular mind of who would you want to see appear as maybe the Golden Trio, or is it kind of too early to...
I think it's too early to say. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think, Thomas Brodie Sangster.
Okay.
He could play any one of the children because he's just got that baby face. Even though he is 30.
Literally the boy who never ages. Oh, who's the boy in Sex Education who, again, doesn't age?
Oh, what's his name?
Who is in...
Asa Butterfield.
Yes.
He was in Merlin.
Yeah.
Back in the day. And that boy has not changed.
Honestly, I watched him in Hugo not that long ago, and I was like, literally, the only thing that's changed is he's gotten taller.
Yeah, that's it.
It's the same face on a taller body.
Say that, though. Both fabulous actors.
Yes. I
could see that. I absolutely could see that. Maybe for a teacher role. Or a 7th year.
Yeah, maybe one of the older years.
Now, with that being said, coming back to the Golden Trio before we go off on a tangent, because we could be here for hours, there has been many adventures that our trio have shared along the way, along the years. What has been your favourite adventure that they've been on? And I'm trying to think of this as where they've been all together, and not necessarily like a big thing. It could just be a scene where they went to the Three Broomsticks together, or where they went to the library together, or where they went through the whole trapdoor thing. The whole, that small little thing and through the trapdoor. So something along those lines. What's been a standout moment for you?
I think for me, it's got to be something like Maybe Moan and Myrtle's bathroom, where they're all sat and making the potion.
Oh, God, that's such a good one. I must admit that never even crossed my mind.
I think actually, like, it's such a good portrayal of, like, Hermione showing off, like, her skills, but also then being, like, persuaded by Harry and Ron to be a bit more kind of daring, rule breaking. Ron and Harry just kind of sitting and chilling and just being like, yeah, we're in the girls' bathroom, like, but it's a bit awkward, but, like, they're cool with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just think it's such a nice interaction for all of them, and it's just such a kind of like, okay, this is them really kind of getting to grips with, like, who has which roles within this group.
Mm-hmm. Roles are established very early on.
Yeah, exactly. Like, literally from, like, the chapter that we're on, it's like, this is their roles. What about you?
Do you know, and this may be quite controversial, right? But my opinion on this, I completely forgot this was a thing until 2 days ago when I watched the deleted scene for Philosopher's Stone. And it's a small scene that they really should have kept in. They really should have, because it's so cute. And it's the three of them walking along the corridor where I think Mrs. Norris gets petrified, but in Philosopher's Stone. And it's the three of them, and they're just sort of talking, and then it's when Ron turns to Hermione and said, oh, that's what friends are for. You know that friendship has been established. You know that Ron's opinion has completely changed. And Hermione just turns around and gives him a little smile, and you think, right, here we go. We've got the three of them. Our trio is now set.
Honestly, that just kind of like... it just fills your heart with warmth, and it's just like, oh my God, this is it. This is them.
It's one of my favourites. It's absolutely one of my favourites. But then again, by the same token, I absolutely love the scene of the three of them on the viaduct in Deathly Hallows Part 2, where Harry snaps the Elder Wand and just throws it off. Ron's like, what the hell? But okay, that's fine. I agree with it. And Hermione's just like, I'm proud.
Proud moment.
Yeah, proud moment.
See, I still always have contentions with that scene. It's just...
yeah, I have contention about it. I don't agree with the act of destroying the Elder Wand. I do not agree with that. I like the portrayal, though.
Oh, I've just had a thought. Oh my
What?
God. You know, we were talking about cast members and recasting the Golden Trio.
Yeah.
How awesome would it be to when obviously the series gets to it, we're talking like 10 years down the line at this point, but when we get to the 19 years later scene, if they bring back Rupert, Emma and Daniel to do the older versions of them.
Because they'll actually be that age.
They'll be that age.
Oh, that would be so good.
Just as like a little nod to the fans, like afterwards, could you imagine? Oh, that scene just comes through the smoke and it's just them.
Oh, I'd love that.
Oh. Sorry.
Or do you think they'll do an epilogue and actually have you wait 19 years later?
It's just an epilogue episode. A random release, Christmas Day.
And it's like 10 minutes long. No, 7 minutes. It'll be a 7-minute thing.
It'd be like a trailer.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, yeah, going back, that was, sorry to divert. So, yeah, I do get that whole thing on the viaduct being like a really kind of heartwarming moment. It's just, I think my views on that scene overall just counterweigh the shot of it.
I can understand that.
Looking at then the trio of actually then how they then came together and had that kind of friendship. You said about it being, what, Chamber of Secrets, where they kind of came around with Mrs. Norris, and it's like, that's what friends are for. Do you think it wasn't really until the Chamber of Secrets that they kind of had that friendship really forged together, or do you think it was earlier?
No, so see, right, so that thing, I don't know if I explained that clearly. It was this deleted scene was in Philosopher's Stone, but they were walking down the corridor that Mrs. Norris was petrified in the Chamber of Secrets. Does that make sense?
Okay,
So it was...
Yeah, gotcha. So it wasn't the scene in Chamber of Secrets, it was just the same location.
I think that the friendship, as I say, it was solidified in that one deleted scene, which translated over into the end of the Halloween chapter in Philosopher's Stone. It was almost like a non-verbal contract was signed in the book anyway, but in the movie Ron had said this is what friends are for, and then that was it. They were the golden trio. But that, like, completely the whole way throughout Philosopher's Stone from there on in, it was like you could still see the little rivalry between Ron and Hermione shining through. You know, the whole Nicholas Flamel, it makes the drinker immortal thing, and she says it means you'll never die, and he just snaps, I know what it means, I know. But then when it comes through over on into the chess game, like Harry and Hermione are essentially distraught when Ron sacrifices himself so that they could then win the game. Hermione then stays with him while Harry goes off on his own to do his thing. But I think that relationship was certainly forged with the troll. Yeah,
I think since the scene that we've kind of just broken down within the last chapter episode, which was chapter 10 of Halloween, I think actually it then really showed that kind of group coming together. I think actually it's not really until after we get through Quidditch and into that kind of bit where they're going through the trapdoor that's where their friendship solidifies, because it's not until their friendship's put to the test that actually really understand where one another's coming from.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I think with any friendship though, there is like a key point where you just sort of like all of a sudden get each other, and then that's where the tables turn. And I think for them, the troll was that moment. But like any friendship, it grows, it develops, and it does get put to the test over the next few years, certainly over the next few books as we see. But I think that is the definitive point for me.
Yeah, I think actually that's something that's really missing throughout the books about the Golden Trio, is it doesn't highlight their contentions, their arguments, their conflicts as much as the books have in the films. Does that make sense? Sorry, yeah. I've said that really weird. But does that make sense?
Yes.
So like obviously the whole friendship kind of grows and develops and it changes and there's conflict, and actually it's how they then worked through that as a group. That's how their friendship built up. And actually in the film there's really hardly any conflict besides in Half-Blood Prince.
Yeah, well, Deathly Hallows Part 1 as well.
Yeah, I don't really count that because of Horcruxy things. But like it's not like when it's in like the Half-Blood Prince where it's literally a case of like Ron's going after someone else and like the argument Hermione has after the Yule Ball, and it's just like it's all of those little things that makes the group kind of
stronger.
Develop. And yeah, exactly, and stronger.
Certainly, I mean, when it comes, I finished reading Goblet of Fire not that long ago, like as a repeat read, not the first time. But even at the bits though where Harry and Ron are having this whole argument about did he really put his name into the Goblet of Fire, I hate reading it because it just makes me feel so uncomfortable knowing that there's disharmony in that group.
But at the same time, I'm kind of like, in a way, the whole argument of like, did Harry put his name in the Goblet of Fire? You surely think by now, knowing what's happened in the first 3 years of your friendship, Harry clearly hasn't gone behind your back and put his name in the Goblet of Fire. Surely it is a plot of some sort. Have you not learned anything by now? Jesus.
But saying that, I mean, like teenage hormones, rage.
Well, I mean, we can put anything down to teenage hormones.
Literally.
Actually, then talking about their kind of group dynamic, what out of the three of them, who would you then say you closely relate to? Who would be your member of the Golden Trio that either you be the best buddy with out of the three, or who would you relate to the most?
I'd probably say that I relate to Harry the most, and I've always said that just purely because my dad died when I was quite young, and I've always thought it's like, oh well, he doesn't have two parents, I don't have one, so like I'm halfway there kind of type thing. As stupid as that sounds, I know. But yeah, he was always my favourite whenever I read the books and whenever I watched the movies. I would love to be best friends with Hermione. I think we'd have so much fun together in the library.
Honestly, like, if you needed someone to help show you around, like, she is your go-to person.
100%. 100%. Ron, not so much. I don't know why. I just think... Yeah, I don't really know why. Out of the Golden Trio, he is my least favourite.
Okay.
But I still love him.
Okay, so Harry is the person you relate to the most.
Yeah.
And Hermione is probably your Bezzy mate.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that.
You?
I think I would go for... Hermione as the person I relate to the most. Quite happily kind of head down, work hard kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like, I know when to put the rules to one side.
Yeah, you need to be pragmatic.
Exactly. It's just like, rules are there, but if they... not if they don't serve your purpose, but start of a dictatorship.
How Slytherin of you.
But yeah, she knows she can still have a bit of fun. She can break a few rules and kind of... She knows what she needs to get done. I think for me, best friend, Bezzy mate... I think it's definitely like a toss-up between Harry and Ron, but I think I would have to probably lean to Ron more.
Okay.
I think Ron is someone who knows how to just kind of like have a bit more fun. He's a bit more relaxed. I think for me, Harry's just a bit too serious.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think this is what the group dynamic has. It's like Harry is very much kind of like endpoint, goal orientated. Ron is a bit more kind of like laid back, chilled, kind of... He can get things done, but kind of maybe his top priority would be to go out drinking.
You think? Fair enough.
So yeah, I think for me, yeah, it'd be definitely like Hermione I relate to the most, Ron, best friend.
Okay, fair dues.
So we've talked a lot about kind of the three of them as characters. So let's kind of do a bit more kind of behind the scenes, similar to what we did with Hagrid, and just kind of break down maybe a few little tidbits of information that you may or may not already know. So when we look at the original cast, we've got obviously Daniel, Rupert and Emma, and obviously they've been through the films from start to finish. A lot must have happened that kind of behind the scenes. And one of the things that I found when reading through the kind of the Titan books, so the page to screen, the character vaults, was one of the facts that about Daniel that I didn't realise. How many times do you think his prosthetic scar had been applied?
Too many, probably.
So it was applied over 5,000 times.
God, that poor person must have a really numb hand from doing that.
And Daniel with a really numb forehead from the glue.
Yeah, literally. I wonder though, what is it made out of?
I would think it'd be latex, because you could get really thin layers of latex and create your scar pattern, and it wouldn't bulge out from the skin too much.
Okay, fair enough.
But whether or not it was made from scratch every time, or whether or not it was a pre-made prosthetic that was then applied, which I think it would be the latter, just for speed and ease of application for shoots. Mm-hmm. Not to mention, it wasn't only Dan who was then wearing the prosthetics, it was the stunt doubles as well.
Talking of which, are you going to watch this HBO documentary?
Oh, I really want to. I don't actually have HBO subscription.
Oh, I'm sure we can catch up with it.
Yeah, I'm sure we can have a drinks night.
Yeah.
Maybe not the most entertaining thing to watch, maybe a bit somber.
Has to be done.
I know, I'm in two minds about it. Like, I think I will definitely need a box of tissues with it.
God, I needed a box of tissues watching the Return to Hogwarts thing.
Literally, I think if it's anything like that, it's going to be heartbreaking.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
One of the things I found out for Ron, so I'll read you a bit from the Titan book.
Uh-huh.
So Ron's style is a mix of clumsiness and awkwardness. However, Rupert thought that it was almost cool to be dressed that wrong. His style evolved over time, so his first two films was more or less hand-me-downs. Then after Prisoner of Azkaban, when the Weasleys then got a bit more money, it was then evolved into more of the style of what Molly Weasley wanted. So it was very much a case of like, mum takes you out shopping and she helps you buy your clothes.
Mm-hmm.
However, it was still very much a case of like, well, Molly's obviously taking him shopping, so it's very much what his mum wants is what he wears.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't then until later films that Ron really kind of had a style of his own, but it was still very much influenced that kind of haphazardness of the awkward, clumsy mix mash of clothes.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that even though it was such a weird wardrobe, Rupert was 100% committed to just making it work, and he absolutely loved that clothing.
Love that.
So I think the thing is, like, he was absolutely living his best life on set. Like, I don't think he could have had a better childhood.
Fabulous. Love that for Rupert.
So obviously we then go to Hermione's style, and it was then very much in the opposite direction. So it was very 30s, 40s British boarding school girl look. Kind of thinking back to like not Wizarding War, but World War II look.
Okay.
And they tried to kind of keep it very much like top button for Hermione's character, because obviously she's that kind of preppy schoolgirl, kind of head down in books look.
Mm-hmm.
They tried to fit around that by having very much knitted cardigan jumpers, pleated skirts, knee-high socks. Again, until Prisoner of Azkaban, where it then changed a little bit, where she was still then starting to wear her own clothes, but was more concerned with her studies rather than her overall appearance. So it then stayed like that until she then started getting feelings for Ron.
Mm-hmm.
Where she then started making more of a conscious effort with her clothes. So that was then reflected on that in the costumes that she was wearing.
Okay.
Which is quite a nice kind of evolution of the character. And actually, it's very much a case of preppy schoolgirl, very proper. And then it was kind of like, okay, now I need to kind of like glam myself up for the role, for like Ron.
Yeah.
And actually, it was quite interesting reading about Emma having a bit of contention with the clothing style they were going with, because they wanted to go very feminine with the character, whereas Emma really wanted to be kind of like, no, that wouldn't really be what she would wear. If she was kind of head down in books, she wouldn't really be that bothered. It would be more practical wear.
Yeah.
So they then reworked the wardrobe to then have like, you'll notice Hermione wearing in her own clothes, she wears a lot of jeans and a top, or jeans and a jumper.
It's very battle ready.
Yeah, so that's kind of where that kind of leaked through, and actually it's very just practical clothing. And then obviously Harry's is very much a case of, once he moves away from the Dursleys, he's then finally able to have his own clothes. And actually, it's that transition from hand-me-downs to proper clothes, and he gets his own style.
Absolutely.
But what's quite interesting is then when you look at the three of them together, actually, you've got a lot of cohesion between the looks, and they seem to have their own colour palette. So Harry's is very much that kind of like blue and navies and reds. Ron's is orange. I mean, three guesses why.
Oh, yeah, true.
And Hermione's is then pink. So it kind of all kind of works and actually has quite a nice cohesion to it. I just thought it was quite a nice touch of actually, like, as the movies progress and actually you do start seeing them in their own clothes more than their school uniform, it is quite nice to have that kind of personality come through.
Yeah, it's very much what's the word I'm looking for? It's very much like this is them moving into their own sense of self.
Yeah, exactly. I think they did a really nice job actually getting that kind of portrayal across.
Yeah, definitely.
So obviously we talked a lot about wands and wand lore last week, didn't we?
We certainly did.
One of the things that I thought would be quite nice is actually if we then revisit the Golden Trio and let's have a little breakdown of their wands, knowing what we talked about last week. So let's start with... Who should we start with, AJ?
Let's go for Harry's wand.
Okay, so we will go with the chosen one.
The chosen one.
So Harry's wand was a 11-inch holly wand, which was a phoenix feather core. Nice and supple.
Indeed. One of my absolute favourite wands.
Honestly, the cast of this wand is just beautiful.
It's so aesthetically pleasing. It's just so nice to hold in your hand.
Honestly, it is one of my favourite. Like, it's so cliche, like it's Harry's wand, but it's such a nice one to handle. And actually the look, it just looks like you've taken this off of a tree.
Absolutely. Do you remember years ago they did the Hogwarts chess set, but it was a magazine collection that you collected like one piece every week?
Oh, I think so. I think I remember that.
And I remember I got it, but you also got a cast of Harry's wand, and it was magnetic, so you could move the pieces. It was so cool. I absolutely loved it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was. I wish I had carried on keeping it. I just remember getting the wand and being like, yeah, I'm fine. I'll stop.
That's such a cool idea.
Yeah, it was so good. Back in the day, they really did have good ideas.
To be fair, actually, the merch on some of the stuff is...
Oh, it's divine.
Anyway, going back. So, obviously, Harry's wand, holly. So, according to Ollivander, holly wands were one of the rarer kinds of wand woods. Very protective, overcoming a tendency of anger and impetuosity. Impetuosity?
Not a clue.
I have no idea. So help overcoming a tendency to anger. At the same time, holly wands often chose owners who were engaged in some dangerous and often spiritual quests.
Ah, fair enough. I can see that for Harry.
Exactly. Holly was one of those woods that varied most dramatically in performance depending on the wand core, and it was notoriously difficult woods to team with phoenix feathers. As the wood's volatility conflicted strangely with the phoenix's detachment. Obviously, we know that it's a holly wand with a phoenix feather core, so Harry's wand already is quite special in itself, being a very difficult combination of wand and wand core. So it already kind of puts it quite high up there.
Yeah.
And obviously 11 inches, nice and supple. again, as we found out, wand length is all then down to people's personalities and whether they're missing something. Actually, Harry sits kind of middle of the ground, nice and supple. Would you say that's bendy? Would you say that's... I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, supple to me just suggests that it's malleable. You can mould it.
But yeah, obviously we know, unfortunately, this wand meets its fateful demise in Deathly Hallows.
Yeah, I mean, but don't get me wrong. I mean, the Elder Wand, albeit it is a wand that is aligned itself to power as opposed to a certain owner, Harry was then able to use the Elder Wand to repair the Holy Wand at the end of Deathly Hallows prior to putting it back into Dumbledore's tomb, which I believe is the only wand known to have been repaired using an wand. Because when Hermione tried it with the Vine Wand, it didn't work. It just almost expired.
Yeah.
The wood might have fixed itself, but internally the magic was dead. But using the Elder Wand, it seemed to work absolutely fine. And I remember reading that when Harry and the Holy Wand came back together, fully fixed, it was like a harmony almost. It was like Harry felt right again.
I think this is one of the things that we'll talk about it when we come on to it, but it's one of those end scenes that actually I wish they had kept the same as the books.
Yeah, absolutely. It was so pivotal, that's the thing. There was no need to deviate from that. As far as I could see, there was no requirement whatsoever.
No, I mean, the thing is, the end of the Deathly Hallows, you're wrapping up the whole series. Just keep it the same because the source material is there and it wraps everything up nicely. Don't change it.
Exactly. Don't fix what isn't broken unless it's a Holy Wand.
So moving on, we have my personal favourite. We have Hermione's wand. So Hermione's wand was a 10 3/4 inch wand made of vine wood and possessed a dragon heartstring core. Now, as we explained last chapter, well, our last Folio Universitas episode, we explained that dragon heartstrings are very good at producing very flamboyant magic, are able to deal well with curses. Vine wands, according to then a bit of wand lore, vine wands were among the less common types of wand woods. And their owners were nearly always those witches or wizards who saw a greater purpose, who had a vision beyond the ordinary, and who frequently astounded those who thought they knew them best.
I can certainly see that for Hermione.
Yeah, I think actually it's a few things that pop up throughout the series that actually then reinforce that aspect of being able to constantly surprise and deliver throughout the series. Absolutely.
Ron's wand. So Ron Weasley had predominantly two wands. If we're not counting Peter Pettigrew's one that he then sort of adopted post Malfoy Manor skirmish. So initially he started off with his first wand, which was his brother Charlie's old wand, which had a core of unicorn hair. It was 12 inches and it was made of ashwood. Now, the wand itself, it was rather old. The unicorn hair itself was sort of sticking out, and you could tell that this wand was not particularly best suited to Ron. I mean, why would it be? Because it wasn't actually his. The wand did not choose him.
Yeah, and it was passed to him rather than actually Ron winning it over.
Exactly. The wand was upcycled, for lack of a better phrase. So with that being said, Ron's magic throughout Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone and the majority, in fact, pretty much all of Chamber of Secrets, it was never a true representation of his full potential. Obviously because the wand itself was not aligned to him. Let's skip forward 2 years. Arthur Weasley, he's making bank. He is getting money, honey. And as well as a lovely little trip to Egypt, Ron gets a brand new wand. Now, with that being said, his second wand, it is a 14-inch chestnut, I believe.
No.
No, where did I see chestnut? That might have been Peter Pettigrew's wand.
You're right with 14-inch.
It's
That's
willow.
correct.
It's willow.
It is. It is.
It is willow. Wait a minute. Where did I read chestnut? That's going to annoy me. I don't have my glasses on. Anyway, so Ron's second wand, when he got that in 1993, 14 inches long, made of willow and had a core of unicorn hair, which was manufactured by none other than Mr. Ollivander. You can clearly see the distinction between the first two books compared to the 3rd to 7th book, because that is when Ron's full potential is starting to show, because he has his own wand. I was going to say, ironically, out of my wand collection, that is one wand that I do not own.
Is it not?
Nope.
What I was thinking was quite ironic, actually, was the fact that the Whomping Willow was the tree that broke Ron's wand in the first place. And the wood type that replaces it is willow.
Yeah, that is quite good. It's almost like a... Oh, what's the word? It's a something irony.
Oh,
We'll just say it's ironic.
it is ironic because I know what you mean. It's there's a literature thing which is basically like the person outside the book has more insight than the person inside the book.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is such like a wonderful irony that obviously like the Whomping Willow is the tree that smashed Ron's wand to bits, and that is then the wand that replaces it. I mean, talk about karma in full circles, honestly.
Literally. Another interesting fact, actually, which I've just read here, Ron's wand is part of the Wizarding World logo.
Yes, that is true. It is one of the 7 wands.
Wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
9 wands. Oh, okay.
I think it's Voldemort. Oh, wait a minute, actually. Let me.
I think it's the Golden Trio, so you should have Harry, Ron's and Hermione's.
Probs. I think Newt Scamander is there.
Yeah, so there's 3 from Fantastic Beasts.
Yeah, it's Voldemort, Ron, Hermione, Harry, the Elrond, Newt Scamander, Tina Goldstein, Queenie Goldstein, and the original wand of Gellert Grindelwald.
Now, I was just reading up about the wand wood. So apparently willow is an uncommon wand wood. I mean, I feel like they're all uncommon at this point. With healing powers. Ollivander noted that the ideal owner for a willow wand often has some unusually unwarranted insecurity. However, they may try to hide it.
I don't think he tried. It was obvious.
No. Yeah, plain to see. He wore it on his sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think that wraps up kind of like everything about the Golden Trio thus far. Because obviously we don't want to talk about too much about them because obviously we're going to naturally talk about them within each of the chapters that we come across.
Absolutely. There will be a natural progression to this character development throughout the podcast.
And like with many of our episodes, I think we can always revisit certain chapters, certain topics again at a later date if we find any more information that comes forward.
So with that being said, next week we are going to be talking about chapter 11?
Yes.
Of Harry
Chapter
Potter
11.
and the Philosopher's Stone Quidditch. So grab your brooms
And let's get flying.
Yay! I might go and watch that now, actually.
Oh, it's such a good scene.
Oh, I love it. Absolutely love it. It's a great song for pulling off the slip road onto the M25. Just that natural crescendo in line with the acceleration of the car.
That and Butt-Beak's flight.
Oh, don't. Chills every time.
So, absolutely, that is it for this week's episode. So, as always, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode, and join us next week when we will be talking about Chapter 11, Quidditch. So as always, keep your radios tuned in, and we will see you next week.
Cherry bubbles.
Kindest regards.